Welcome back to Civilnet. I'm your host, Patrick Elliott. I'm delighted and honored, actually, to be joined today by the Polish ambassador to Armenia, Mr. Ambassador Piotr Skwiecinski. Mr. Ambassador, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me here.
Let's start with actually historical relations between Armenia. As you know, King Kazimierz in medieval times invited Armenian merchants to sail around Lvov and the eastern regions of Poland. So we had very close relations historically, but it's not the same today. Can you tell us a little bit about why that is and what the future holds for Armenian-Polish relations?
Well, first of all, of course, yes, I agree. And there was a time when for a long time, a big Polish-Armenian diaspora existed in Poland, and it was quite successful diaspora. And what's more, it was a very loyal and very patriotic diaspora. Polish Armenians took part in virtually every Polish wars and then national uprisings. So Polish people do remember it. But on the other hand, you know, this big diaspora, it unfortunately doesn't exist anymore because of several historical factors. There are some Armenians living in Poland, but it's nothing when compared with the days of old glory, I would say. That's one thing. And our countries are geographically distant countries. So I would put it this way: relations now are good or even very good on the international level, but still we have plenty to do in virtually every regards of those relations in order to strengthen them, to enlarge them.
Speaking of strengthening relations, you see a lot of interesting commercial activity between Poland and Armenia. If you go to any grocery store, you'll find a litany of Polish products. And more interestingly, you had Warsaw that purchased a stake in Armenia's stock exchange. Looking 2 years after, what's the Polish perspective on that acquisition, and are they satisfied?
Yes, I must say that yes. I mean, the relations, the attitude of Armenian authorities connected with this part of economic activity and the current leadership of AMX, it is how this Armenian stock exchange is called, it all goes more or less smoothly, I have to admit it. And what's more, these negotiations before on this acquisition, they took a long time. And there were some difficult moments in them, but I have to stress that everything was going on, everything was carried out in a very, let's say, civilized manner, according to all the Western standards, which is something very good. And I must say that it's a good sign, not only for a Polish-Armenian cooperation in the future, but for Armenian cooperation with the world as a whole. Why? Because for instance, not only Polish potential investors, but potential investors from Western European countries of the so-called old European Union. I mean, the countries which before 1989 belonged to the Western, let's say, hemisphere, Western camp, not to the communist camp. Even those camps now consider Poland their peer. They consider Poland a Western country. So when they hear that Poland decided for such an investment, they consider this decision as made by people they respect for their professionalism. So it is important for their decision-making process too. So to make the long story short, this is a very good sign for the prospect of Armenians of Western investments in Armenia, not only of Polish future investments of Armenian, but from another Western countries too.
Let's switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit on about the Ukrainian war. I mean, Poland has been such a vocal supporter of Ukraine and its independence and democratization. How does Warsaw see the development of the conflict and its impact in the Caucasus? Because we're definitely feeling that impact. How does Warsaw perceive it?
Well, our Ukrainian partners defend their country very fiercely, very firm. And I think, and I hope, and I think that they will succeed, that they will stop the Russian war of aggression against Ukraine. By the way, it answers your question. And Ukrainian success in stopping Russians, it is in the interest of not only of Poland but of Armenia as well, because I'm more than sure that if Russia would be able to win in Ukraine, so then we have to consider what would be their next steps, and that would be, I think that there will be a few of them, but one of them, for me, without any doubt, would be that they would restart their expansion here in the Caucasus region, and then your Armenian freedom and democracy in your country would eventually be in question, be in stake. So it's in your opinion. So it's in your, of course, it's in your interests that Ukrainians would eventually prevail too.
Well, with that in mind, it would also be in your interest for Armenia to prevail, right? In its democratization, its pivot towards the West, and so, you know, seeing Poland be so vocal for Ukraine, for Moldova, for Georgia, why do you feel that we haven't experienced the same for Armenia, for Armenia's democratization, for Armenia's pivot?
Well, we are totally on your side, and our government said it, and not only said it, it acted in this direction too. However, you know, we must remember that unfortunately we are not close neighbors. I would like it very much to be so, but it's not. But it's not like that. And our direct neighbor is Ukraine, and if any danger would eventually come to Poland, a threat would come from the Poland, it would come through Ukrainian territory, not through Armenian territory. So of course, this is a very important. There's a very important factor, and given that we are hardly a global superpower, and our resources and our capabilities are limited. So of course, it means that the levels of our engagement, which are very high in case of Ukraine now, can't be that high elsewhere. However, well, notwithstanding that, I must say that we are supporting Armenian, and that, for instance, in September last year, when this terrible crisis, this terrible refugee crisis from people from Nagorno-Karabakh started, Poland was the third country worldwide after France and Iran, which managed to get humanitarian aid to the spot, to Armenia, technically, and I think it shows something.
You mentioned that Poland is not a superpower, but what's interesting is Poland is very seriously upgrading its military capabilities with purchases from South Korea and from the United States. But what Poland still has, of course, is a lot of very, very good technical know-how on how to upgrade Soviet-era equipment and of course, territorial defense tactics that the Ukrainians themselves are employing quite effectively. Are there any increases in cooperation, or at least murmurs of cooperation on the military technical side between Armenia and Poland?
I must say that, and it is a news of last 2 weeks, I would say, that the Polish Ministry for Defense decided to agree to sign an agreement with your Ministry of Defense. This agreement doesn't say anything very specific. However, it makes possible many things afterwards. So I must say, as you correctly said, Poland is working very hard now in order to strengthen its own military. So personally, for me, I think it would. I wouldn't expect a possibility of Polish military products, Polish military made in Poland, to be sent to to be sent or to Armenia or to any other countries, because all our defense industry manufactures now, it goes almost all of it goes to Polish army. However, of course, there could be other aspects of collaboration, and I think that when this agreement would finally be signed, I think that specialists from both countries will think it over, and probably some kinds of cooperation would start. Or at least I can't exclude it.
As of recording this, there's still very serious ongoing protests in Tbilisi against the foreign agent law that the Georgian Dream government is pushing through parliament. Poland has very heavily invested in Tbilisi, not just through material support, but also diplomatic support. And now we're seeing this kind of straining of relations between the European Union. How does Warsaw perceive this, and what impact do you think that has for us here in Armenia? Will this make things more difficult for us, or make us more important to Poland? How does Warsaw see this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very important topic you have mentioned. In fact, well, we consider the process which is going on in Georgia as potentially very dangerous, because eventually, if unstopped, it can lead even to a recess of democracy in this country. Why does the Georgian government, the current Georgian government is so, let's say, consistent in carrying on this new very controversial law into being? Frankly speaking, I don't know. Nobody knows. Experts assesses many hypotheses and many possibilities, but in spite of which one of them could be true, the results can be very dangerous. And as Armenia is considered, so of course it all means troubles for you, because so far Georgia is physically the only way through which Armenia can physically communicate with the West. Of course, against the background of what's going on in Georgia now, there are some people in the West who now start to say that, oh, Armenia is a rising star of Caucasus. That's true, but having said that, I must say that I wouldn't, let's say, overestimate this such nice voices, because if eventually, I still hope it would not, but if Georgia will eventually suspend their march through the march in direction of the West, or even will drift away from it, so the number of gains for you from them would be vastly outnumbered by the losses.
Sir Ambassador, thanks again for joining us today. It was really enlightening.
Thank you very much for having me here.
Dziękuję bardzo.
Dziękuję również.
Thanks again for watching Civilnet.